Well, let's take a look at Nicholas Carr's The Shallows. I won't lie to you. It is difficult to find a book that I'm totally satisfied with for the third part of this course, which is in many ways the most important part because it's focusing on our situation, our current situation. But it is difficult. The Shallows is a perfectly okay book, I think, but it's not the first one I've used, and it's probably not the last one I'll use, trying out different texts to cover our time, the computer age, really the internet age, or maybe something beyond the internet now. I don't know. And it's not just that the quality of the book is not on a level of Postman or McLuhan, although that's true. I mean, that's I won't try to fib and say that I hold this book, The Shallows, in the same esteem as McLuhan and Postman. I don't. I think that those are classics. However dated they may be, they're profound enough that they continue to be worth reading. And I don't know if anyone will be reading this book in 10 years, 20 years. Probably not. And it's probably, more than the fact that it's just not the same level. It's trying to do something perhaps that's more difficult than McLuhan or Postman did. This book was written, I believe, in 2010, which is a long time, I think, ago in certain respects. In terms of, 2010. In terms of what the internet is, the internet's changed a lot since then, or at least things that were new then, and perhaps not as ingrained and not as popular, have become more central to our experience of digital technology. It's maybe not even the computer age anymore. It's the cell phone age, something that I participate in a minimal way. And maybe he isn't taking those sort of things into account. It's also generational. As you'll see, this book talks about being rewired a lot, being changed, being between two radically different, he claims, modes of thinking because of our use of computers and especially the internet with a computer. That's generational itself because this is a man who was born in 1959 who, as he says, had an analog youth and a digital adulthood. That he was well into his 30s, maybe even 40s, before the internet became the huge force that it is. I was born 7 years later, but I know what he means by analog youth and digital adulthood. It was a period of transition. In fact, since the personal computer became a thing in the 1980s, early to mid 1980s, it has been a kind of for somebody who was raised with a typewriter, frankly, and who thought he would be writing on a typewriter for the rest of his life and would have been quite happy. It's been a series of transitions, from the old analog culture, first in the production of text, transition from writing with a typewriter to writing on computers of different sorts. But now in the consumption of text too, where we do maybe most of our reading on a computer screen. At one time, that would have been quite almost unthinkable to the average literate person. Computer screens were not ever thought to be particularly nice things to look at. Eye strain, aesthetically not good, but it's what we do now. So it may not relate to you as much as perhaps me. Certainly the kind of effects, the neurological effects that he believes computer use, internet use are affecting us all if they're true. But somebody who grew up with a computer, grew up with digital technology, grew up with the internet, as you more or less did, I suppose, maybe not the same internet that exists today, but in some form, this sort of transition idea simply either wouldn't apply to your generation at all or would apply in a different way. You don't know the analog world that I know and the author knows. You don't. The analog technology for you is hipster technology. What's more hipster than bringing your portable typewriter to Starbucks or insisting on vinyl or 8-track tapes, which is really very cool. These things are fun, but those were the cutting edge technologies of my time. Everybody had vinyl records and wrote on a typewriter. So I think that one of the difficulties in trying to find a book that really I find completely satisfying for this part of the course is the fact that things are changing very quickly, and maybe we just don't have, maybe on the other hand, maybe the great thinker who the McLuhan especially figure has not really emerged, and that's something to think about. As Carr said, one of the reasons that McLuhan, or the real reason that McLuhan was so popular, was not because he revealed the truth, but because he answered people's questions. Actually, that's not McLuhan. That was said about somebody else, but I was reading another book. But I think it's true of McLuhan, is that it's not that he revealed the truth, is that he provided answers to questions that people were asking. And he was providing explanations for anxieties that people had in the age of television and electronic media. That figure has not emerged, I think, for the internet or even for computers in general. I mean, there have been any flood of books. I mean, The Shallows is one of many, 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 many books written in the past 25, 30 years about this subject. First about computer use with the PC being introduced, and then the internet in the 90s. I mean, many, many books have been written about this. And certainly before the 80s even, there were many books written about computers' effect on human nature, on culture, on thinking. It's just that it all seems to me to become, none of it's not worth reading, stuff from that time, but it becomes dated very quickly. There is more, McLuhan, for whatever he said about how the world was changing in profound ways, and this all-at-onceness and the disappearance of the Gutenberg galaxy of the printed word, compared to our time, things were fairly stable, maybe stable enough that somebody could write a couple books in the space of 5 to 10 years that really remained relevant and to the contemporary world. And maybe that was true of Postman's critique of television in the 80s too. I think it's harder to get a fix on things. Things are changing very quickly. Things are disappearing very quickly. Although, as I've tried to describe, Postman and McLuhan were talking about the advent, the centralization of electronic communication technologies. There was still a heck of a lot of print around, and newspaper reading was probably still at its peak. If we look what's happened to that in the past 10 to 15 years, it's been almost cataclysmic. That is, the old-fashioned person who read the newspaper, read the newspaper thoroughly every day, is a figure that's become increasingly rare, especially in the younger generation. People are getting their information, such as it is, in different ways, and that's happened very quickly to our culture. Very quickly, and I don't think the thinker has emerged to really tell us what it means, give us a profound vision yet. We're still waiting. So that's just an apology and an explanation for the book that you're reading. It's a good book. It's well worth reading. And if I think there are problems with it, I'll point what I think are the problems out. But it's well worth reading. It's just obviously not at the level of a Postman or McLuhan.